All right, guys. Well, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Shannon Castillo. I think most of you know her pretty well. She's a broker with Mitch Cox. She's also my awesome boss at Spark Plaza. I love my job a lot. But I'll let her take it away and share a little bit about how we can not hate jobs that are miserable in the future. So go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so Carly has been asking me to speak for probably ever since you started this, and I kept pushing her off and kept pushing her off, and then I couldn't push her off anymore. She was starting to catch on that I was just pushing her off. But today we are talking about this book, which is going to look a little weird, but it used to be called The 3 Signs of a Miserable Job. And for some stupid reason, they republished it as The Truth About Employee Engagement. I'm sure there was some good reason for that, but it will always be The 3 Signs of a Miserable Job in my heart. And this is by Patrick Lencioni. It's my very, very favorite book. So one time I was asked to speak rather extemporaneously, and I was like, I don't even know where to start. And they said, start in the middle. So that's what I'm going to do today. Before I even realized what a miserable job was, in 1999, I was working at a Christian liberal arts college as associate director of admissions. And I'd been there for a couple years. It was a job that honestly, at first, I loved. I was very passionate about. It brought me joy. It ticked off a lot of boxes for my personality, but somewhere along the way, the Sunday sads started creeping in. And that's that term where you get that pit in your stomach on Sunday night, knowing you have to go to this job the next day. And I remember distinctly a Monday morning, I was ready to go to work, everything except my shoes. And I sat on the edge of my bed and just sat there and thought, I would rather be doing anything. I would rather wait tables than do what I'm doing right now. And I realized that I needed to get a new job. Now that was before I even knew about this book. Fast forward 10 years. It's 2009. My husband and I had started Spark Plaza. I had been working in pharmaceutical sales arena for a long time, 11 years at that point. And I was not fulfilled. And I remember sitting at Spark Plaza, and I will remember it like it was yesterday. Dave McCauley with Summer Leadership, you guys might know him. He was sitting there with me. We were having lunch together, and I was like, I just hate my job, but I can't leave at the golden handcuffs of this sweet deal. And I don't know what to do. And he was like, you should read this book. And I'd never heard of it, but I was intrigued and picked it up, read it in one day. And of the 3 signs of a miserable job, I had 2 of them. And over the next couple years is when I really started digging deep, figuring out what makes a job miserable. Are all jobs miserable? Or are there just bad jobs? And what I could do to change them. So this morning I asked you all what your miserable job was, and you all had several good stories of jobs that were in any other way, shape, or form miserable. And as I read this book, I started thinking about, I remember another time in my pharmaceutical days where I really wanted that job, went after it, and got it. And I remember calling on doctors, and I'm from rural Ohio. I was the second person on my mom's side of the family to ever even graduate college. So I felt like I was changing my family tree anyway. But I remember calling on doctors and thinking, oh my gosh, they have all this education, they have all this money, what a great opportunity. And I remember talking to a physician and him saying, I hate my job. And I thought, oh my gosh, how sad to have gone through that much education and for one singular purpose, to be a physician and hate your job. And then you start thinking, well, what are you going to do now? And what's interesting, even through pharmaceuticals, of which something at first I really liked, knowing that things got a little miserable. So today, what I really want to accomplish is I want to tell you some really good stories of just some fun stories, some things that will help you maybe put things into perspective for you. We're going to talk about the 3 signs. And then I want us to talk about what do we do when we're in a miserable job if we're the employee. And then those of us on the call that are managers, I want to address you in particular. Because both, you can change this miserable job. As a manager, for sure, you can help your employees. But as an employee, if you have a manager that maybe isn't as engaged, you can still salvage your job. It just looks a little different. Okay, so if you were to think about miserable jobs, how would you rank these? A pooper scooper at a parade, a doctor at an internal medicine practice, or a fast food employee? I think initially we might say, well, doctor's the best job, and fast food, gosh, that's way down there, but pooper scooper is the worst. And I'm going to blow your minds because that's just not the case. My husband tells this story. He tells it way better than I do. But it's specifically about the 1965 Rose Bowl Parade. And his dad was a young kid at the time and wanted to see the parade. And so all these big people, and they, of course, they were little kids. So they climbed on top of a marquee, like a theater marquee, so they could see. And they're watching the floats come down, and they're watching the marching bands, and off in the distance, they could hear cheering, like not just a normal, yeah, that's really very cute, you know, whatever. It was like full on cheering. They're like looking out and wondering, what is going on? What's the big deal? I mean, we have these big floats and we have these celebrities coming through and marching bands, and they see off in the distance a team of horses pulling a wagon. And then they're like, oh, that's a big deal. It's just a team of horses pulling a wagon. And then they see beyond that, they see the guy that's scooping poop. And your initial reaction is, oh my gosh, that has got to be the absolute worst job anyone could ever imagine. How demoralizing to be walking behind a horse and scooping up its poop. It's just got to be the worst thing in the world. Except it wasn't. The guy had picked up some streamers that had fallen off some of the floats, and he decorated his wheelbarrow. He decided to make it a game, and he would take the wheelbarrow and he'd swing it all the way to the left, and the crowd would go, whoa, and then he'd swing it all the way to the right, and the crowd would go, whoa. And then he would park his wheelbarrow, look out, and he would see a big old pile of poop. And he would run up to it with a big flourish, scoop that poop, and flick it up over his head in a hook shot, boom, into the wheelbarrow. The crowd goes wild. And the best part of the 1965 Rose Bowl Parade was this pooper scooper. So Jose likes to tell this story and say, any job can be fun. And he's right. If I were I remember being in pharmaceuticals and seeing that doctor and thinking that should be a really fun job. Gosh, you make tons of money. You're helping people. You can really see that you're making an impact. And then to have a doctor say, I hate my job. Conversely, you compare someone who is a fast food employee at McDonald's or a fast food employee at Chick-fil-A. Same job. One is kind of a miserable job. One, people keep a job at Chick-fil-A for years and years and years. People want to work for Chick-fil-A. So what's the difference? And what makes us have those Sunday sads and think that I would do anything rather than doing my job? So when I picked up this book, and I highly recommend, you can get it on Amazon, very inexpensive. it may be at Mr. K's, I don't know. It's a very easy read. It reads like a novel. And so it follows the story of a guy who had a very successful company and decides to retire. And then he gets bored and he ends up working for this pizza joint. So that's really the premise behind this book. But throughout this book, you will learn what this guy does to change the way this business runs. And I think that the other thing that I take away from this book is how it's applicable to anything. So you don't have to be earning six figures and be a CEO. You could be earning minimum wage at a fast food joint, and you can employ some of these tactics and have a better job. So, all right, so what are the three signs? First is anonymity. And what Patrick Lencioni means by that is you don't feel known. And specifically, this miserable sign is really, for me, it was the one sign that I didn't have when I was in pharmaceuticals. But it's the one sign that really only managers can do something about. And it's if an employee doesn't feel like they're known. And I don't mean like surface. I know that Shannon's married and has 2 kids. It's a little bit deeper. I know Sophia, so Shannon's kid, Sophia, is in the marching band, and I saw their picture in the paper. So as a manager, I'm going to cut that out and give that to Shannon. It is the sign that you want to be part of something bigger than yourselves. If you feel known, it is going to be so much harder for you to quit that job than if you don't. I remember having a job once where it was also one of those jobs that I went after. I mean, I went out 9 months, called the guy once a month to get this job. Got the job, and he was nowhere to be found. Gave me no direction. There was no personal talk. There was no, let's celebrate Steve's birthday in the conference room. None of that. And I think in his mind, he was doing the right thing by being impartial. But it absolutely had the exact opposite effect. For me personally, how I dealt with anonymity when I was in pharmaceuticals was it's just a factor of my personality. I loved knowing people. Now in pharmaceuticals, my boss lived 3 states away. So to me, for me, I worked mostly by myself, but my connection was in the customers that I had. So for me, it was easy to get to know them. And some of them got to know me. And the people that got to know me were my favorites because they cared about who I was as a person. So anonymity, there's the first one. The second one is irrelevance. And oh my gosh, when I was in pharmaceuticals, I had this big time. And the bottom line with this sign is that you feel like what you do doesn't matter. And I really felt like that. I don't know if some of you know pharmaceutical realm, we sell drugs out of the trunk of our car. And as the days went on in pharmaceuticals, regulations went higher, and there were times when we couldn't get in to see our doctors, we couldn't sell, and a monkey could have done my job. And I really felt like, and I was selling something in my mind that was boring. I sold an antihistamine. Oh, for Pete's sake. Like to me, it just didn't matter. Like if you took Zyrtec, fine, you're gonna get better. If you took Allegra, you're gonna get better, fine. It just didn't matter. And I grew more and more jaded over my job and how insignificant I felt in that job. That was one of my signs, and it was awful. And how I dealt with it was I answered 2 questions. Who am I helping? And the next question was, how am I helping them? And those two questions, you guys can take those two questions and take it to any of your jobs. You can think back to your miserable job or apply it to your jobs today and really dig deep and think about, who am I helping? When I think of the job that I have now as a real estate broker, now, if I just boil it right down and go, Shannon's a realtor. Oh my gosh, that sounds so gross. And I kind of cringe because sometimes realtors can be annoying. It's true. But when I look at what I do in my job and I think about who I am helping a small business be able to open up their shop that they had a dream and that they chased after it. And I was able to successfully negotiate a place for them to go. I also help my landlords that I represent. I help those people who are trying to sell properties. I help connect people that have problems with solutions. And I can't tell you how much relevance I feel for my job when I put it in that context. If I just said, I'm just a realtor, that just doesn't make me feel relevant. So then I think about, how am I helping them? So that could be me picking up the phone, me dropping by, saying hello, me knowing that those people know they can call me if they have a problem, even after we get them into their space, or serving them by being on top of a schedule or deadlines, or making sure that they don't fall into pitfalls. So you can use that same question in what you do. And so now here's the other thing. So no matter what kind of job you have, if you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or if you're the assistant of that CEO, this sign of being irrelevant matters the same. And the weird thing that I've never really been a manager. I've never really had an assistant until this year. And now I have an assistant and I adore her. I'm so thankful for her. And I want her to know that what she does for me matters. I want to give her as much relevance. Her job needs that same sense, as does mine, as does a CEO's. And I want her to know that she is helping me, and that gives her relevance. And that shouldn't make us as managers feel weird. We tend to try to be selfless and say, oh, the people that are under me, I don't want them to think that they are serving me. They are. And that gives them relevance. But it's not flippant. Like, I wouldn't say to my assistant, man, you really made me look awesome. Good job. I would say, oh my gosh, thank you for reminding me that we have a renewal. I could have lost out on money. That one thing made us better. So that's, as a manager, the difference between a manager and an employee, where that irrelevance really comes into play. The last sign of a miserable job, and boy, I had it when I was in pharmaceuticals, was immeasurement. Now, I don't make this word up. Patrick Lencioni made it up. You will not find it in a dictionary. But the bottom line is that you feel like you cannot measure your success. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that your success is based off of how you're compensated. It can, if you're in sales, of course, your compensation, or selling another building or leasing another space, get your compensation up. But it's more about other measurements. I'll give you an example. When I was in pharma, and I was increasingly miserable, and when I read the entire section on immeasurement, what I realized was, if I went into a doctor's office and tried to sell him the drug A, and I left, did I know that that doctor wrote that drug? Nope. Did I know if that patient, if he did write the drug and he gave that prescription to the patient, Did I know if that patient was going to fill the prescription? Nope. If they did fill the prescription, did I know if that patient would fill it at a pharmacy that would then report that prescription to my company? Nope. And to make it even matters worse, by the time I did get my sales, they were 3 months old. So I had to change the way that I measured my success. And in my case, I had to look at the 2 signs. I felt known. So I really didn't have the anonymity issue. I felt known, but I did feel like my job was irrelevant. And I did feel like I couldn't measure my success. So if you're a manager, then your job is to sit down and think about these 3 signs and present them to your employees. Maybe not the anonymity one. That's the one that you're going to have to work on to get to know your employee in such a way that's authentic, genuine. Employees can see when you're trying to blow smoke a mile away. But they pay attention when you're genuine. But the other 2, as a manager, sitting down and really digging down deep with those employees and going, I want to make sure that you feel that your job matters. Why do you think that matters? Who do you think you're helping? How do you think you're helping them? And then with the measurement, that depends on everybody else. So for me, this sounds so dumb, but one of the measurements that I did when I was in pharma was I kept a tally on how many nurses I engaged with, because they were just as important as those doctors. I measured, we did a lot of education. So, and I would measure it based on how many educational things I did, or what, there were different measurements besides, if you're in sales, the typical measurement of how much money did I make, how many sales did I have. In my job now, of course, I still look at that. Looked at it yesterday. I mean, I was looking at spreadsheets and comparing it to last year's, and that is a way that I measure my success, how many deals I've done. But as I'm getting in this job longer, and I've been doing this for 6 years, I can tell when I'm getting into a funk and I've got to change it up. So what if you're the employee? And I know some of you have come and talked to me about this, and said, I'm frustrated with my boss. I am really unhappy. I like my job, but my boss is a nightmare. You are the people that I really want to talk to, because it's not all lost. You can save your job. I saved mine in pharma for years before I moved on, simply by looking at these things and making my own relevance and making my own measurements. The anonymity part, you can't really fix, other than the fact that you can know others, and that may be enough. When I think about the job that I have here, we're very much our own boss, pretty much. But genuinely, I love the people that are in this office, and I love getting to know them. And doing that, I was known as the girl that if it was your birthday, you got a happy birthday song from me. And that kind of stuff helps connect you in such a way that it may save someone else's job, someone else that might be thinking of quitting or leaving. You may be helping them on a bigger scale than you ever know. So when it comes to irrelevance and measurement, if you are the employee and you have a boss that's a disaster, you're going to have to go inward a little bit, and you're going to have to really dig deep and figure out, okay, if I don't have that support from someone above me, what can I do to make this a job that is successful? And this book will give you some practical examples, especially when you get through the novel part of the book. The end is really more practical. And he gives like really cool case studies of people from all different walks of life. What makes someone love their job at an In-N-Out or a Chick-fil-A versus someone that works at McDonald's. And it has been the one book that I can't even tell you how many copies of this book that I've purchased in order to give to other people. I know that people have come to me like, gosh, in the last couple of weeks, we sat on my front porch and drank cocktails and talked about why they hate their job so much. And then the next thing is there are just some bad jobs. Like not every job is the best. If you put me in an accounting firm and all I did was count widgets all day, 8 hours a day, and put them into a spreadsheet and never talk to a single soul, I'd probably lose my ever-loving mind. However, if you put someone that absolutely loves accounting in something like that, then they love it. So I think that first and foremost, you need to know thyself. And that's a whole nother talk we could have about knowing what makes you tick. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What setting makes the most sense for you? I know for me, I don't know if I'm going to stay in commercial real estate for forever or not, but I do know that this is the right job for my personality. Every day is different. I'm not in there are days that I love being in the office, but if I'm in the office every day, that's a bad day. Means I'm not selling anything. So the first thing for you all is really to know thyself. And that may be, Carly, we may want to talk about something like that another time. Knowing your personality. If you've ever done Myers-Briggs or the DISC test or Enneagram is something that I've been reading a lot about. It has really helped me in choosing what makes sense for me personally. So the other thing is, then when do you decide to leave? And it happens. It's going to happen. It's happened to me. I've left a job every which way you can. Been laid off. I've been fired. I've quit. And I think that you will come to a point in your life and in your job that if you employ these three things, or at least irrelevance in your measurement, if you don't have a boss that can really help you with the anonymity part, you can survive for a while. You might even be able to thrive, but you might not. And so you've got to figure out that time where it may mean you go look for something else. And it was true for me. In 1999, when I sat on the edge of that bed and wanted to do anything else except that job, is when I started looking. And when I got into pharmaceuticals, I rode that wave until I got kicked off, and I was miserable towards the end, but I wasn't miserable enough to leave. I've had jobs that I just knew weren't suited for me. And then it's time to go look for something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think gone are the days that we have the same job for 30 years. You know, it's just not the way the world is anymore. And then, so what do you do? Last question. What do you do if you do have that boss that's a nightmare? Do you throw this book on his desk and run away? Maybe. I don't know. Or do you acknowledge that that's just not part of their gifting to think in such a way? And do you move on? I think that also is a question that you all need to answer for yourself. I know for me in the jobs that I've had, especially now when I look at what I do, which is mainly independent of everyone else. And getting to know my coworkers and realize if they're having a hard time, to just sit down and talk to them and figure out why they're miserable and what is their pain points, and talking through them. You don't even have to really mention that this is a book. You could just start talking. And the bottom line for me is I'm so thankful that I read this book, because it really did help me push through the hard times that I had in those jobs. And it is probably the single most book that changed the way I thought about my job, in any job really. I think about my kids, and the 16-year-old just got a job at Chick-fil-A, and we so interested to watch her move through a process, especially in fast food, and figure out how to enjoy a job and how not to be miserable in a job. So I hope that this has encouraged you. I don't want us to be doom and gloom, but I do want us to acknowledge those 3 signs, and then I want you to figure out a way to get through it. So if you have time, if you go get this book. So stupid title, The Truth About Employee Engagement. But it is a great book. And maybe, I don't want to start a book club, but I don't know. I'd be happy to talk more about it with you all over coffee or a glass of wine. So, any questions? Snide remarks.
I have a question, Shannon. What would you recommend? I know some of those questions are hard to ask in the interview process if you are looking for another job, to kind of pre-screen a potential opportunity, but how would you frame that up? Or is there a way to kind of pre-screen using those 3 things?
Ooh, that's a great question. I almost think the best way if you're looking for a job and then you're wondering, is this going to be a miserable job, or is this going to be a job that I'm going to love? I think observing the other coworkers, what kind of culture is it? I think that would help. I think having the conversation with your interviewer about measuring success, and how is my job relevant? Who am I helping, and how am I helping? I think those are really good questions to ask, and I almost think an interviewer would be impressed by them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome.
Jody, I forgot to ask you, what was your miserable job?
Oh, I don't think I was on the call for that part.
No, you weren't. That's why I saw you come in.
I've had miserable parts to jobs.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever had, and that's, I guess, part of being in academia, there's like, I do different kinds of things. So there'll be things I kind of start to not like, and I sort of dread those things, but not everything. I can't really remember a job that I felt completely miserable and hated going to completely. But I was going to add too, that I think some of the best advice I ever got was to use your current job always, even no matter how happy or miserable you are, always be using your current job to prepare for your next one. So like looking around, even happy or sad, like looking around for things and opportunities in your current job to get experiences that could serve you in a future job. And I know I always look at other jobs, even when I have no intention of like moving away or taking another job, just to see like what else is out there. Like, I don't know, I think it provides a level of psychological safety. And then for those of us who really thrive on adventure and have a high level of curiosity and want something new and interesting, new projects, new opportunities, and just little sidebar things really help keep it, fresh, and also keep you ready for when a new opportunity comes along.
Yeah. And you made, you typed something in the chat about one of the good things about learning from being miserable in your job. It makes you a better leader later, more empathetic and understanding. And that is the truth. Going through that, and everybody's different. I mean, I remember seeing someone that just went to this job, and to me it sounded really boring, but they just plugged away. And I remember being jealous almost, like, why can't I just go to a job and not care as much? But that's just not my personality. But I do know that it has made me, going through what I've gone through, whether that was being laid off of a job, or knowing I was in a miserable job and needing to leave, or just being in a situation that was terrible and knowing what it felt like to have a bad boss, has made me more empathetic in talking to my friends and understanding where they are in their life. And it does make you better, for sure.
Yeah, that was to piggyback off of what Jody said. I completely agree. I had a boss tell me, I shared my miserable job story, and it was because the owner, and I just had major anxiety because of the way that she led. But in that year that I worked for her, I learned so much. And my boss, the next boss, that I had an awesome job and loved her and thought the world of her. I was, kind of reminiscing on how anxious I was in my past job. And she said to me, if you hadn't have had that year with her and learned what you did in that year, I couldn't have hired you. And that's kind of been in the back of my mind always. Just remembering that there is a reason why I'm where I am, and I can learn the most. Like you said, I can learn from it while I'm there.
In one of my past jobs, on my desk, I had a piece of tape, and it was printed, and it said, "What would my replacement do?" And for some reason, I really liked centering on that question on a daily basis, and it helped me have a better attitude about a lot of things too. But no matter what, listen, none of us are perfect. We're all going to have bad days. That doesn't mean you're in a miserable job. But one thing that I have learned is that you need to share those experiences with someone that you trust, because you could be helping somebody else, but you might need a different perspective on how to move through whatever situation you're in.
This is Jennifer. I had two things. One, I just wanted to tell you, Shannon, you're fabulous, by the way, about supporting others, and what you do does have meaning. I mean, you've helped me start my dream. So I just wanted to thank you for that, because I don't know that you always get the thanks, and hope you understand how much I appreciate that. The second thing is just that I think once you find that you're in that job and you cannot change those three things, you have to go past the fear and move forward to get out of those situations, because I don't think we always recognize how unhealthy that job can be. And if you can't change those circumstances, it can take a huge personal toll, on your health, on your mental stability. And it's so important that we kind of get past that fear and that comfort to try something different, because once you do, it's amazing what you can achieve, but you have to get past that fear.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's
probably
good.
Have a whole nother talk about anxiety.
Yeah. Stephanie, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute, Stephanie.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
I think that's good, because if you are immobilized by the fear, especially if you've been at a job for quite a while, you can tend to think, okay, how am I ever going to leave this place? Like, what else am I going to do? Giving the example of a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but like, that's a good one, because a doctor goes to school to be a doctor. What else are they going to do if they aren't a doctor anymore? and trying to think outside the box of what do I have to offer another place, where could I look, like, and not just think in the context of what you've always done or what you're trained for or what you went to school for and things like that. I know years ago that really helped me kind of in connecting with some other people and having conversations and encouraging each other too. Even when you are in a really negative situation, looking for the positives, even on a daily basis. I've recently started doing that myself because my job itself is not miserable, but I have a couple of a manager and a couple of other key people that I interact with a lot that make it very miserable.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I kind of came to realize lately is if I don't take something positive away every day and focus on that, I'm just making myself more miserable by focusing on the negative instead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. And I feel for anyone that is in that position. It's not a good feeling to have, to not want to go to your job in the morning. And I just hope that what helped me with this job is that it saved, and with this book, is it saved some of my jobs by employing some of that, even if it was just temporary, while you go look for something else that might be different or might fit your personality better. It's just a good all around book. And I think everyone should read it. Even managers should make their employees read it, even if they're hesitant, because they don't want their employees to be miserable. But it's a good one and can help us all do better in our jobs.
It's a super quick read too. I read that book in less than a day.
Yep, it really is. It's a fun read.
I have a question.
Bring it.
Now that I've made it to work, you all have lived through my morning routine. So I have been in all sides of the situation. And Shannon, I appreciate you being so honest and just transparent about how the highs and the lows can be in all of our lives. I don't know that all of us have the same courage to do that. So I appreciate that you're willing to do that, especially in a conversation like this. I don't think you get thanked enough for the young lady that said that earlier. So what do you say to the new boss who's cleaning up a shit show of a mess? Can I say that, Mr.?
You can, it's fine. We're not live streaming on Facebook.
We're not live streaming, so you're okay.
I had to try to put my clothes on this morning. Thank God I got the warning about Jose being on here. Goodness.
Joy, I think that you have the best position in the entire world because you have the ability to change all of this.
So I am. It's good. It's just I'm taking a bunch of people who have been beat down and have been not heard and not appreciated and not recognized and not been validated in the little jobs. Some of you don't know me. I work for the Chamber in Elizabethton. I'm brand new. And it's a roller coaster. All at the same time that it's not just that I'm trying to, and I do the whole Enneagram for all of you who don't, I'm an 8 with a side of 8 with a sprinkle of 8. I don't have any feelings. I have 2 very distinct feelings, bitter and jaded. So you've got me with no feelings, trying to deal with everybody with feelings. And they're real feelings because I've been where they are. I've been in that position that they've had a boss that's been just complacent and went through the motions. And now we're cleaning up a mess that we shouldn't be cleaning up because that boss decided not to just do your damn job. Just send out the invoices. Like just, So at the same time, we just got shot out of a cannon because I started on June 1st. I mean, and that's just how I roll. So what is your advice for doing all the things to an 8 who doesn't have feelings and doesn't have time for feelings? I try to bring donuts in. I feel like that's a start.
That's good. You did great. Okay, I will say this. As someone who has been an employee and then had a new manager come in, I think the first thing you do is nothing.
Okay. We've
Do
done
not change everything. Do not, like, some managers, I'll watch this. It's a disaster. They'll come in and then they'll flip everything upside down the first week. This is the worst thing that you can do. I think what you can do, and I'm sure even, and I know I appreciate you as an 8. I'm a 6, so I'm full of anxiety, but I'm also extremely loyal. But what you can do is just listen. And even though your personality is one that's not touchy-feely, that is okay. That does not mean that Joy, I know you. You're an 8, but I know you care about me.
I do.
That doesn't, being an 8 doesn't mean that you can't have feelings for people. It means that you're going to take up the fight. If one of your employees is wronged, oh, I know. I would want you in my corner.
I'm coming with an axe.
So I know you are. You're taking your earrings out, shoes off, and there's going to be a throwdown. But I think the best thing that you can do is sit and listen to your employees. How many people work there now?
4, not including me. 5, including
4.
me. And we've done.
Right.
I've done, and I feel like we had to change some stuff because we had to do some things, but
yes, sure. Yeah. I think listening to them, they're the ones that have been in the pit of this organization. Well, how long have they worked there?
most of them 2-ish, 2 years. Got one that's been here for and they all lived through it's like being on the Titanic and watching it sink, and that you're the band that's just playing because you don't know what else to do.
Keep on playing.
And so you need to be something else. That's what they lived through, and I'm trying to resurrect it from the bottom of the daggum ocean. It's a mess.
Yeah, and you will.
And
will.
And we're gonna be fine. I know that there's we're gonna be fine, but I don't have those feelings because I didn't live through that. Now I've lived through that in other jobs, but I didn't live through the trenches with them, with different leadership. Right. They have a lot of feelings about it. I listened to them. We had the whole ripping, my first week. I'm like, tell me all the things. Get all the words out of your mouth. Just vomit all.
That's right.
Tell me all the transgressions. So I know. I mean, and I tried really hard. I didn't go Botox that week specifically, so I had feeling in my. True. And you're right. Yeah. If somebody picks on them or says something negative, I'm showing up with an axe and you're going to die. Like, you're not going to talk about these people like that. But that is a side of leadership that I wasn't prepared for, because the 2 times that I was at Frontier, I had the absolute best leadership. So I've had the best example in leadership with Teresa Kidd. And I don't know why I was so naive to think, oh yeah, everybody's great. All leadership is great. No. And I knew I was coming. So yeah, well, I appreciate that. That's good. That's good commentary. It makes me feel better that I'm doing the right thing. I'm not doing anything and just listening to all the words and showing up with donuts.
And I think the other thing is bring them alongside you.
Oh yeah.
Like when you're getting ready to make change, and I know you will, but bring them along instead of pushing them or leading them where they're just trailing behind trying to catch up. If you come alongside them and you walk together, I think that you will gain their trust, and 2, their buy-in. But I also think it may not be a bad idea for you to give this book to all of them and go, hey, we're going to go through this book.
I like it.
What do you have to lose?
That's an excellent idea. I will order it and we will do it in November. If we literally have something to do every 2 weeks for the next 8 weeks. Nobody's allowed to do anything other than work. But after that, when we move, then we will.
Something else I wanted to just add.
And they're all about all the things because we didn't do anything for 2 years. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think too, you guys, Shannon says the pit, and Joy, you said the trenches, but I think it's whether it's a pit or it's a trench, I think it's important that you're in it with them. And I'll tell you this, I had years ago, and I'm 46 now, but I was probably 20 at the time. I worked at a hotel in Sedona, Arizona. I was just working the front desk, and I had went out to the back to the break patio, and the chef at this restaurant who is world renowned, I mean, well paid. He is out on the back dock with a bucket and a scrub brush, and he's scrubbing the oil off the dock. And I, as a 20-year-old, I looked at him and I was like, Scott, don't you have peons to do that work for you? And he looked at me as straight-faced as possible, and he said, how can I ask someone else to do the work I'm not willing to do myself? And that stuck with me. It was so profound. And I think that, by being in the trenches with them, that's how you're going to gain their trust, that you're not that other person.
I appreciate that. That's one of the lessons I learned at Frontier real fast, that the president and CEO of Frontier, who's no longer there, she retired, and then I left. I saw her come in before everybody and turn on the coffee pots. I saw her pick up the mail. I saw her serve every single one of our staff at Thanksgiving, at our little company Thanksgiving dinner, make sure everybody got a drink, walked people, I saw that. And that's an example that I've definitely led by, that I come in, you know what you do when you're the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce? You clean the bathrooms on Monday. Take the trash out. You all saw my room. I had to go to the mailbox. I got to go get UPS. I'm charging a battery. That's what you do, for sure. And I have that example for sure. But I appreciate all of you. Those are great comments. I appreciate it.
Well, be encouraged, everyone. I didn't know what to expect. I could talk to 1,000 people at once and be fine, but talking to a small group of women scares the absolute crap out of me. So thanks for being kind to me too.
Thanks for doing a talk, Shannon. Aren't you glad I bugged her so much about it?
Yes, thank you.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. If you want to connect more with us, sparkplaza@gmail.com is our email. Shannon, do you mind throwing the best email to reach out to you in the
Sure.
chat real quick? If anyone has follow-up questions, wants to do a little wine book club moment, chat
Especially
with Shannon.
if there's wine.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks so much, ladies, and stay tuned for the next SparkWomen event. Bye, y'all. Have a great
day, everybody.